this session, like all the other webinars of Encryption Europe, is done in cooperation partnership with ISOC, the Internet Society. So you will see among the list of participants Jolie McFly, who is our point of contact with ISOC, and this session is recorded and retransmitted live through ISOC. So we have this group where if you're on this call, you can contribute and make comments and engage with the speakers and panelists. But there are more people who are joining through ISOC. So thank you, Jolie, for your support. So welcome to this session on end-to-end encryption. Is it enterprise ready yet? So really, the essence of the discussion is there is a growing really concern and interest for companies and people, but in this case, enterprises, to look more carefully at how they protect the confidentiality of their communications and of their data. And so this is where the acronym E2EE, end-to-end encryption, came into play. I mean, people know more about end-to-end encryption because you can see it on some messaging platforms that this is really clearly labeled as this is end-to-end encrypted. But what does it mean in practice for companies? And this is really the topic of today. When we prepare this discussion, I will introduce the speakers one after the other so that people have a fresh ideas on who are and what do Christophe Bianco, Istvan Lam, and Tobias Höllwarth. So I will introduce them one by one just before they talk. But in essence, the role of the three of them is for Tobias to play the role of the user, of the demanding client who wants both usability and features and protection and on easy platforms. So Tobias will be playing this role. Istvan will be explaining to us, he's a cryptography engineer. I will come back to this. How do we do this? How can this be done in practice? What are really the things very hard to do? What are the things possible to do? So he will give us really an overview on this. And Christophe Bianco will be the advisor who helps companies to actually implement encryption on their systems and in their processes. So it's really like this very traditional triangle between those who want, those who provide solutions, and those who implement them. So, and we hope to have a very lively discussion. So let me now start with, so the way we're going to do it is, so Tobias will open, Istvan will provide really a kind of overview on the ask from Tobias, and Christophe will then provide his third party, if I could say, expertise. So Tobias Höllwarth, I mean, Tobias has different hats, different roles related to privacy and to IT and to cloud. For today, I mean, we want Tobias as president of EuroCloud Europe, which is a pan-European cloud innovation hub, which is vendor neutral and provide guidance to both cloud customers and providers across Europe. And one of the obsession of Tobias, he also sits on the advisory board of Forum FIC, which is the largest cybersecurity conference in France. And one of his obsession is to build also a common European market. So he works for more confidentiality, for more quality, and for a stronger Europe. This way also he was very welcome contributor to this webinar, and because in Encryption Europe, this is also what we work for. So Tobias, so you are the chair of this innovation hub. You know everything about the cloud and cloud strategies. So we wanted to hear from you. Okay, what is your perception on encryption? How this is useful, and what is the ask from your point of view as a client, as a user of the cloud towards, I mean, encryption companies like Tresorit or experts like Christophe. So over to you, Tobias.
Thank you very much, Jean-Christophe, and a very warm welcome. Good morning to everybody. I hope you can hear me well and the bandwidth is good enough. Thank you for being invited here. Now, from a user perspective, let me say encryption is a difficult topic because it's very technical and very difficult to understand. So there is a famous saying of our English Lord Putnam, and he said the aim of plumbing is to be boring. And what he meant with it is that we would like to have everything very high tech, but we don't care, we don't want to see it. It has to be in the background. And encryption is a little bit similar. People would like to have a few things, but it is not encryption what they want. What they want is trust, they want confidentiality, and they want to solve some topics as enterprises like GDPR. What do I mean with that? I mean with that most companies were used to store their data on their own IT, and they were able to control it quite well. Not really good, but quite well. Now, with the digital transformation and with the usage of a lot of different cloud services, they have one big issue, and the big issue is they take data and they process or store it somewhere else. So the main question for them is, can I trust them? And the second question is, am I complying to law, like, for example, to GDPR? Now, encryption, and everybody knows that, encryption would solve that problem. It would solve the trust problem or the trust question. It would solve GDPR. If you encrypt your medical data, you store nothing in the cloud. You store as chunk. So you have no GDPR issue if you're able to do that. And therefore, people understand that encryption is probably a very helpful methodology or tool or whatever on WhatsApp, on Amazon or cloud services or Microsoft Cloud, wherever, but they understand it's quite complicated. And maybe they understand that there is something like encryption on transit. So if I send the data to a cloud provider, nobody can be within the internet connection and take my data. And some of them understand that there is something like encryption on rest, which means if I store the data at the cloud provider like OneDrive or Dropbox, nobody can take it from there. But what they are not aware is that there is nothing really good like encryption while a cloud provider is processing my data, which would be really cool. And we all hope that this will come soon, because usability is the other thing they want. They don't want that things get more complicated. They want to use their cloud services on their PCs, on their iPads, on their phones, everywhere. And they don't want that it gets much more complicated. So two-factor authentication is already the maximum you can ask them. After that, you get a lot of negative comments if you make things too complicated. So encryption also has to be very easy to handle, boring in the background, but very efficient and very strong working. That is the difficulty with this technology and what we want to achieve. We want to have it, sorry to use that word, we want to have it really boring, so we don't want to see it, but we want that it is very efficient so that we can trust cloud providers or internet connections or telecom operators.
Thank you, Tobias. I think exactly the difficulties we have at the moment. And so, Istvan, so you are a cryptography engineer. You are a co-founder and CEO of Tresorit, which is this European company, created in Hungary, operating in Switzerland, and part of now of the Swiss Post Group, and your company is an encrypted file sync, sharing, and collaboration tool. And so, you are in a way in a very lucky position, because the issue of cryptography, probably is now entering a new phase. Now people really discuss cryptography. They may not know exactly encryption. They may not know exactly what it means. There is indeed a level of abstraction which is hard for people to cope with. And so you're really in a very specific and sensitive and strategic component of cybersecurity. And you're faced with this contradiction between the level of abstraction to really master encryption well, and then the fact that, as Tobias said, I mean, people want trust, they want usability, and then you have to combine these very two extreme, really opposite demands. So what is your response to this? And what do you think is possible? What do you see for the future? We can discuss this maybe later, but okay, what's your answer to these really very difficult demands?
That's right. Encryption is hard. I mean, it's with the Tresorit, we are encrypting data for businesses mainly, but we also have consumers across the globe, from Hong Kong to Brazil, but mainly in Europe and in the North America. And what we had as a goal or vision was exactly what Tobias said, what the encryption should do. But what we said, we want to give enterprise-grade security at the same time and consumer-grade simplicity. And that the two things together should, that was how we started the company, that the two things together should convince people. And this is how we started. We said, okay, we want to do everything what like Dropbox or OneDrive does, but on an end-to-end encrypted way, on a way that we cannot get access. We cannot see what's stored there. So that the key management is on the client side, encryption happens on the client side, everything on the client side. And that created that everything became extremely hard. Because just to give you an example, when you are encrypting file names, simple thing like that, then it becomes extremely hard to detect whether two users are uploading the same file. And what the expectation of the user would be that the first user uploading that file is the version 1, and the second file is the version 2 of the same file. But if the file names are encrypted, then those detecting those sort of parallel uploads and put it in a row becomes extremely hard, especially in a distributed environment. I mean, cloud is not a centralized environment. I mean, you need to when you are designing cloud, inside is a distributed environment, so that it's eventually consistent, but not immediately. So then these simple things getting harder and harder, and the users are not even thinking about that. I'll give you another example. We overcome that, but it was very, very hard. The other example is that the user wants to, not just store documents, but work with that. For us, usually it's documents which are uploaded, and they asked simple thing like, okay, I want to view those Office documents. I don't want to download it. I don't want to open it in Windows. I mean, I can do it in Dropbox and somewhere else, that I just click on it and then view it in the browser. Good. Then usually how it's done, I mean, it's interpreting an Office documents requires font set, requires different rendering, it requires a very complex way to do that. And usually what they do that, or the cloud providers, that there is like an Office engine on the server side. They render it, pre-render it, they create something out of it, and then they send down an HTML code, which your browser can interpret, and then you have your beautiful document. Then for us, I mean, we cannot do this because everything, if it's encrypted, becomes extremely hard to implement. while someone can use OpenOffice on the server side to pre-render. We need to do a big research in order to make it happen on a way that we don't re-encrypt or don't decrypt the things on the server side, because that would break the promise what we are giving. And the promise is that we give the same functionality, but on an end-to-end encrypted way. We resolved that. We went through, but it was all of this, and there's just a few examples. All of this makes the system implementation much more expensive. And when it comes to utilization, does what we were asking, who are the customers who are ready to pay the extra costs? Who are the customers who are ready to value that extra security in the cloud? And that was a sort of shift towards special kind of businesses and special use cases where this type of security helps and being valued. So what I think, I mean, it's the whole point and the whole parts of the encryption starts from the customer. If the customer doesn't understand the difference between a simple server-side encryption and end-to-end encryption, or channel encryption and end-to-end encryption, then there is a problem, because then this additional hassle, what we are going through, won't be valued, and then you will see that the vendors will choose the easier path. They will choose the path where the implementation will be easier. They don't need to worry about things, and they can just hack in whatever way and then provide features, and the customers are happy. So then I think if customers doesn't value and doesn't understand the difference of end-to-end encryption, and then they don't value the added complexity, the added work, the sweat, and everything what comes with these systems. And it's not easy, though. I need to mention, we have customers who value that, and we are not the cheap solution, and they're ready. Some of the customers were even laughing on our price, even though that we are like much more expensive than the competitors. But for them, it was extremely cheap, because if for their use case, it was something very important what others couldn't provide. So I would give back that, okay, it's I think it's possible, and there are, like Tobias mentioned, there are cases where the homomorphic encryption comes into the picture, so it's not just storing, where this new science fiction. But I'm simply talking about storing and collaborating on information, and it's still not, the technology is there. The technology is there how to make it happen, but the demand is not a mass market demand at the moment. What we are sensing that enterprises started realizing, oh, wait a second, this is good. I can, you say that you can replace my on-premise system and have the same type of control, so I'm not losing control. Oh, that's good. That started to happen, and if it's happening, then more money will go into the developments of such systems and such technologies.
And I think before we hear from Christophe, I think what you made, and thank you, Tobias, for also commenting on the chat. I think that's the right way to go, and I invite also people on the chat to feel free to also, comment and further elaborate, and this could also lead us to the question you may have that we may not think of. Before we hear from Christophe, I think you made a very important point of the education. People will not buy what they do not value, and they will value what they understand. So this is the now in terms of if you deal with enterprises, Then, of course, when you have to educate the CISO of one enterprise, then you can spend the time, and then and hopefully the CISO would have already some understanding of the complexity and the value of what you are providing. My question is, how do you educate the markets? Do you do it directly? So it's you have your own sales or pre-sales staff, and then they reach out to the potential clients, or do you go through partners who then really resell your products? So how do you have to educate your market? So how do you do it?
Is it for Christophe or for me?
No, for you, Istvan. For before, and Christophe will have the same exactly the same question because he does it. So, but for Tresorit specifically.
Yeah. Okay. So that what we in the early days when we started in 2013, what we did, we said we people were asking the end-to-end encryption or client-side encryption for files. How does it differ? And we try to explain, but a few technical people, other than a few technical people, the mass market didn't understand. And then we came up with a campaign that was a hacker challenge. We said we give $50,000 to anyone who can hack us, and we open up our servers and giving admin rights. They can see what we see and still give $50,000 if they get any information out of the system. The reaction was there was a big PR buzz from that perspective, and then obviously people started the hacking, and they were complaining that this is not a true hacking challenge. I mean, you don't have the keys. You only store encryption, encrypted data, and for someone knowing, I mean, we were describing it wasn't the black box hacking; it was a gray box hacking, so that we provided a description of the system design and so on, so that once the hacker teams, university research groups, and they were looking through the materials and said, there's no point. And we said, well, the point is we try to explain to someone who doesn't understand was the difference, that there is a difference. And that helped us to be on the radar, to position to ourselves for not necessarily just someone in with having a crypto background, a cryptography background. So I think one of the key, what we learned by doing that, we need to go beyond just the professionals, go beyond the ones who can understand the complexity of the different encryption architectures or architectures of a system, including encryption. And then what we did, so that's one of the campaigns we started in the beginning, but that was, I mean, it's skewed for consumers or private individuals to convince. That we realize when it comes to CISOs, when it comes to enterprises, we need to have more than just a very nice hacking challenge. Because first of all, we are securing data which worth more 100 times, 1,000 times more worth than $50,000. So then that for them is just peanuts. So they needed something else. And that was the time when we decided that we are only using standard cryptography, so that what is written down, I mean, it's like we can always connect the dots with international standards, how we do this, how we implement this. So all the details there, how do you generate IV and all these details, because when we go through an RFI, we need to able to, for professionals, we need to show that we are good. So there is this high demand, and there is this like hard sort of education on the market. But at the same time, we should not forget that the demand, once you get somewhere, professionals who understand the topic will question you, so that and those professionals need to show in front of the authorities that they did a good job, and then that's why we needed the standards. We were debating, for instance, we call it science fiction crypto, whether using something non-standardized, but we see the papers that it's there, that okay, it's going to be more secure, but we decided not to use science fiction crypto because that will be hard to explain for customers to the regulators when it comes to there. So that's what I mean with the standardization. That was the second thing. So the consumerish campaign, standardization, and then certifications. So that what we did, we simple ISO 27000 for our processes, so that the company they can trust. But also we went through source code review with Ernst & Young. They looked all our source code, the cryptography, and then they issued a certificate that okay, Tresorit employees cannot get access. I mean, it's the demand, or what we were claiming in the hacker challenge, now is backed by a party who's you know a respected third party. After reviewing the source code, it's not just a cute marketing element. There is a statement from an auditor, a very respected auditor. They have this technical stuff, and that Tresorit is encrypting in a way that no employees can get access. Then when we were having some awareness, we had proof. And that's the two things. We needed to create awareness, and at the same time, being prepared that not to dilute, so that the awareness part, not to dilute the professional parts, so that the promise and the proof is still there. And that the two things together, because once someone read about you, that's cute that you were talking to journalists and all the stuff, but that should not your professionalism, how you implement the things, that shouldn't be too simple, because it's not a simple thing. And when it comes to selling the stuff to enterprises, then the hard questions will come, and you will need to answer those. That's, I mean, in a nutshell. I can talk more about it, but maybe just a few basic point.
Oh, thank you, Istvan. I think it's a good segue to Christophe. And so, Christophe, you co-founded Excellium Services about 8 years ago. You face, which is a cybersecurity company operating from Luxembourg but covering Europe and also beyond, and actually very well aware of your activities in Africa, for instance. And so so you're facing a very healthy growth. I mean, you grew your team, your staff by 20% in September. So congratulations for this growth and to attract talents, because we know how difficult it is. And so you help clients to secure the IT systems and the way they work. And then encryption. I mean, you have Excellium Services is 8 years old. Before you were working with companies like Qualys or Verizon and so on. So you have seen the demand for stronger security increasing, more awareness. Then you must have seen that encryption have been playing a role and plays a role in this. So what is your perspective? I mean, what do people ask your clients in terms of confidentiality and encryption? And how do you see specifically end-to-end encryption? I mean, how much your clients understand the differences between different types of encryption and the needs, back to the point from Tobias, what they want. They want to use features easily, but they want to have it done very securely. So broad question, but it's really, I think, a good snapshot of what you have been facing in the last 8 years in developing your business and advising clients.
Thank you, Jean-Christophe. Effectively, you summarized what we are doing. So basically, we are a commercial company. So at the end, my goal is to sell. In 20 minutes after that call, I have my boss asking my forecast for the quarter. So my goal is, okay, what we position, of course, so we can improve the security level of customer, but being pragmatic and efficient. And based on Tobias' introduction and Istvan, I think I got the same analysis of the current situation, but perhaps let me add some flavor. If you look what we are doing, we are selling to, how I can say that? We are selling to customer the adoption of encryption in order to provide to their clients experience. So what does it mean? It means that I have two, in fact, customer, a B2B one, which is buying the solution I'm proposing to him and the services I'm proposing to him, typically a CISO or people like that. But this guy has a client himself, which is the end user. And the end user don't want at all any complexity in terms of technology, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not sure that they are also interested in understanding the level of complexity. Let me just take an example. When you look at ourselves, most of us having no issue to store very sensitive information into our smartphone or the cloud from Apple or whatever. Or can you expect that the same people have some attention to the confidentiality of the corporate company documents? So that creates a difference between the wishes and the reality. For me, that's the same discussion like sovereignty. Everybody wants to be sovereign in their data, in their technology, and all these kind of things. But we have to be realistic a little bit. So that's my point. That we can explain complexity, we can sell the value, we can present that to a CISO, to a technical guy, but at the end of the day, the question will be, okay, if it's a pain in the ass to use the technology, and excuse for the expression, the people will bypass it or find another way to use the system, and it can be the Lambda end user, but can be also professional. Yesterday I discovered in my own company, but because the new Wi-Fi we deploy is too secure, too restricted, blah, 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 some people have discovered the key of the box and they are directly going through the box instead of a Wi-Fi platform we deployed. And we are security professionals, so I need to go back to them and to explain a little bit the reason behind the deployment. But what does it illustrate is that the Wi-Fi is not providing the experience they used to have. And so they try to bypass it in order to have something more useful and more interesting to use. So that's the current situation we are facing when we talk to cyber. And if I look my business, I would say project around encryption, let's say before COVID represent less than 1% of the business activity. For customer, it's embedded, it's commodity, so let's use. But we have that antinomic posture or bipolar posture, as I tried to explain, which is, I think Tobias and Istvan positioned that. We want to have encryption implemented because we want to protect our data, blah, 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 and all these kind of things. And we want to keep the ownership. Typically, we want to get our key and master our key and all this kind of thing, because we do not necessarily trust the provider. But it should be user-friendly and all this kind of stuff that we already explained. And what I'm seeing at the moment, and that's perhaps what will change, because now we are signing big deals in crypto, is for me the cloud adoption. And typically we are seeing that question of encryption technology going back to the loop, because first, let me give you an example of a typical journey of our customer at the moment due to COVID. Before COVID, especially in Luxembourg, cloud is bad. You cannot export if you're in finance, and people cannot work from remote location, blah, blah, blah. COVID happened. Everybody have to work from home. So everything is open. Let's manage the risk, do what you want, do what you can. But people have to continue to work because resiliency, economy, blah, 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 blah. So everybody deploys Zoom, Teams, all this kind of stuff that nobody wanted before. And after 12 months now, people say, oops, but it's not clear the level of encryption that we get from Azure or this kind of thing, depending on the license. Initially, the project was on Teams to do video conference, but now we see that it's easy to share files, to use the Drive, to use the SharePoint. So Christophe, we have an issue, Houston. And so we sit down and say, guys, what did you buy from Microsoft? We don't know, Christophe. We bought the less expensive solution they provide to us. And so we don't know exactly what we have, which level of encryption, what we can do, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of things that we are facing at the moment. And the discussion come often to, okay, we need to take control on the data we are sharing with the cloud provider, making sure we protect that. And so we have, I would say, several projects in what we call CASB, Cloud Access Security and Data Leak Prevention, where the people plug immediately the discussion on encryption, which kind of crypto we use, who is managing the key, and all this. And the funny things for me is that the line we sign on that, it's 700K for a 3-year deal, which is a significant deal already in Luxembourg when it comes to security technology. And stepping back a little bit and thinking that we are talking about spending in encryption and protection of access, that's a little bit amazing to me because it took us, let's say, several weeks to make that opportunity coming to the table. We have to talk to the regulators. We have to talk to plenty of people in order to be compliant because, in finance, compliance is more important than security. But now the pipeline is growing quite a lot. So it seems that, okay, there's a solution on the market. Let's go after that because we want to keep the control on what we are doing. And as Istvan said, we want something that it's easy to use, but we understand that it's complex. And in that complexity, we are okay to use commodity services, but on top of that, we need to keep the governance of our assets or capability of these kind of things. And so now the challenge we have as a provider or advisor, which is in some sense our posture, is to clarify what is an apple and what is not an apple. And I was smiling when I saw that Pierre from is following the webinar because I think he has the same discussion with his customer. I'm providing a secure vault, but a lot of people say we are providing a secure vault, but when you go in details, what does it mean? You see that, yeah, that vault is not like that one, and for us, that's the issue. The issue is to understand exactly what was implemented, what was the concept behind that, who is mastering what, who is having an access to what. And I should say that we do not have necessarily the right skill every time to ask the right question to the provider or to the software vendor and this kind of thing. So that's a challenging aspect for us at the moment. Offshore, on top of the complexity, you add the complexity of the countries, like European technology, Switzerland technology, or these kind of things, which is an additional level of noise for me, but that we have to manage because that's the day-to-day topic. So if I was a little bit skeptical on is encryption is a topic for a provider like me, I would have said no. Let's see if you have asked me that 12 months ago. Now seeing current discussion specifically to that cloud encryption, but let's go back to the rest, and no far from yesterday, I had a discussion with a new VPN for remote access? What about the customer mobility and the capability to have that zero trust implementation and all these kind of things? So I will say that if we are good enough to make that topic understandable by the decision maker, I think that there's an opportunity to go back in the game by having a real discussion on the an apple is not an apple every time, and you have to dig into that in order to clearly define what are the requirements that we consider in order to make sure that we have a proper solution to implement. And I had that discussion, and I will close on that recently, on the messaging platform, Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, and all these kind of things. And if you have to an end user, they got nearly all the same level of security, privacy, and all these kind of things. Of course, it's not, but for the end user, it's the game. It's the same. Sorry. And we just made a paper 6 months ago during an investigation response conference where one of our lady in that case, explain the reverse engineering we did in order to get access to the message of a customer on WhatsApp, because he wanted to demonstrate that it was not the first one that have read the message in an exchange because it was linked to a deal, blah, blah, blah. And so we did it. And the response from the customers, but someone told me that you cannot do that because it's encrypted, And so, yes, it is, but not exactly in the same way you think it is, and that's the key point. So I think we need to be able, as you always say, Jean-Christophe, to be more understandable by the non-technical people or the people that cannot understand because it's not their domain of competency, but to, let's say, to formulate the key aspect on what does it mean being safer in that world and being able to select the right solution. And as I said, we still have that challenge of a difference between, for me, a customer and a client. My customer have some clients and they don't necessarily have the same level of understanding, and they don't want that at all. And currently in cyber, unfortunately, client experience have sometimes more importance than a customer expectation in terms of security. And that's the game we are playing to be clear on that.
Thank you, Christophe. And I think I would like now to, based on what you said, something very, it was very pragmatic, and you, I think, gave us a very good overview on what has happened over the past few years. And it's very encouraging to hear that encryption was basically a super small business. Negligible a few years ago. Since COVID, two things have really changed again. First, you do have much more questions on or requests for encryption, which is, I think, great for this type of activities and of technologies. And also, and this is on what I would like to hear from Tobias. The situation of people, rushed to buy solution rather they want for the cheapest one with the best usability, obviously, and then it's now today they're in the process of understanding. Oh, but what do I have, and how are things really encrypted and secure, and so on. So I would like to hear from Tobias. Okay, how do you at EuroCloud Europe you have this kind of 360 view on the market and what people want? How have you seen this change at your level, and people buying a lot of services, not knowing exactly what they have, and then questioning, oh, but maybe, for you, especially at EuroCloud Europe, is there a better or good reason to buy services from European cloud providers versus global ones? So how do you cope with this situation, Tobias?
Well, in my heart, I'm an Austrian, but I'm a true European. So I'm happy if there is business in Europe and companies get successful in Europe too, and not only some European players. But honestly, I don't think that looking at someone's passport is the right way to address the question, is this the right cloud service for me or not? I don't care if the cloud service is coming from Austria or from Slovenia. I have a problem with North Korea, I have to admit that, but most countries I'm fine with. I'm fine with Israel, I'm fine with the US. What I think you should look at is always, is this a nice person or is it not a nice person? I mean, is this a good service or is it not a good service? And the question, if something is a good service, is quite difficult, because the question is more precisely, is this a good service for my use case? And most people don't understand that you always have to look at it from a use case service perspective and not from a cloud service perspective. A cloud service can be perfect for a specific use case, and it can be absolutely not possible to use for another use case. So customers need to understand the use case, and then they need to address the question, is this the right cloud service for me? And again, it is a very difficult question, because as you lose control over your data and features, and you have a little bit less transparency about the cloud provider and his subcontractors and the way he operates his data center and all legal elements, whether they are compliant to local law, and all security elements and cryptographic elements and GDPR elements, and all ITIL and COVID topic like change management and incident management and capacity management. These are all very, very important questions, but there are too many. For most customers I know, and I do consult a lot of very large organizations, banks and insurance companies and railway companies, even for them, these are too many questions. And even if they get good answers, they have difficulties to understand the quality of the answers. So the only chance to address this topic is to simplify the evaluation if a cloud provider is the right one or not. And you do that by selecting a number of questions that are so relevant but still easy to answer, that you get a very good picture whether you can develop trust or not. And this is the same in the cryptographic area, because it's not only the question, do you implement the right cryptographic methodology, and do you use modern non-compromise technology? It is also, how do you operate your whole service? Where do you operate it? Do you have trustworthy subcontractors? Do you implement good change incident capacity management and whatever? So my recommendation to all customers is to build up or take an external catalog of questions that addresses a number of questions that you need to discuss with your cloud provider so that you can develop trust. And if you have a very simple use case, you probably can go with 15, 20, 25 questions. My experience is this is normally more than enough to understand who is standing in front of you. Is that company, is that service a trustworthy one or not? And if you have a very complex use case, if you have critical data, if the service has to be time critical from an SLA perspective, then you probably need to ask 80, 100, 150 questions and to get a clear picture whether you feel comfortable and whether you feel also comfortable in case something happens. Because let's face it, this is IT. And in IT, there is always a problem at some time. Even Facebook, who invests millions or billions of dollars, sometimes has technical problems. So we need to understand that there will be an issue. And when something happens, people will ask the question, who has agreed to use this cloud service? The finger pointing will start. And at that point, you need to be on the safe side. You need to have your personal VIP pass, which gives a clear explanation why you or a group of people have decided to use that specific cloud service for that specific use case. That is normally done in a heterogeneous competence team, a cloud center of excellence, for example, using internal and external questionnaires to challenge cloud services appropriate to the specific use case. That is my recommendation. So if you stand in front of the elephant and you ask yourself the question, how can we eat that thing? You chunk it into little pieces and you make sure that you follow it step by step. And that is what you have to do as a customer that is acting reasonable. Still, it is quite a complex task. It needs quite a good organization, and it needs quite a lot of know-how to get customer organizations to act mature enough. Because most of them are not doing, they are not acting mature. They are either buying the services because they want it, or they are buying it because they don't understand it, that there is some criticality behind it, or they fear to death and they don't take any service because they don't trust anybody. This is not the approach in our digital age. Nowadays, we are forced into the cloud. Everybody will use dozens or hundreds of cloud services in 3-4 years, a lot of microservices. And it is really important that customers also get more mature, understand the complexity, understand technology issues, and ask the right questions so that they can act in a mature way.
I would like to hear from Istvan. So when you see thank you, Tobias, for really explaining how to really help clients to, embrace the cloud and find what is good for them, and also not enter into this EU/US fight. We have some limits like North Korea, but I think you made very clear, okay, people should look at what they need, and then that should be the choice. And then for you, Istvan, then you, when you see this way of engaging with the clients and help them to understand what they need, is this typically the approach that you have as well? Is this the type of discussion you have with your clients, or is it something new that Tobias is proposing that maybe is food for thought for you and for the way you promote the value of your service moving forward?
I think for the more educated customers who are having a professional team to select the right choices, we are seeing those happening, that, as Tobias mentioned, they're having a developed questionnaire. Sometimes it is not consolidated. It's like you can see that it's like written by 10 different people, and no one took the time to select the right questions. So it's not 15 or 20 questions, as Tobias mentioned. It can be hundreds of questions, and some of those are overlapping because it's coming from legal, coming from CISO, the office, and all the others. So they're not necessarily, they're taking the time to create questions, but they didn't take the time to consolidate. There are though customers who have a very mature way of questioning the provider, us, and in the RFI phase, we go through that. Though I need to mention that these are big organizations typically. Smaller organization doesn't necessarily have the capacity for those sort of questionnaires or developing those things. At least not in a format, a sort of RFI type of process where they send a questionnaire, they come back, but they're more like an informal. During the call, they're asking the questions from more colleagues who are doing the sales, or sending it in emails back and forth. So it's not in one structured way. But what we realized that it's a repeating pattern. Some of the customers wanted to do even auditing where answers, that there's a proof behind that claim. And that was a point when it became relevant to have compliance programs and having third-party auditors that we can say, oh, look at their audit report, because it's actually done by TÜV or someone else who checked the that relevant questions, that it is in place. There is a process in place. There is a selection of third-party suppliers, as Tobias mentioned. So they are we not just saying that, but we do something about it. So we see that. Though I need to mention that a lot of customers in geo-specific, they have this. They want to store information, for instance, just in Germany, just in Switzerland, so that the information, the passports or the data residency is important for certain customers. Even for it's not, we don't see this as more like an emotional. I think it is more coming from what is the jurisdiction where I trust. So it's not the passport, it's the jurisdiction, whether I trust and that jurisdiction I'm fine with, and that jurisdiction where I can store my data, and I'm you know, I feel comfortable, because US has a jurisdiction which is good for certain businesses but not good for other businesses. And that jurisdiction question, geolocation or residency, I think what drives, it's not the passport question. It's more like, what are the laws, who are making the laws, and what laws will protect my data, and what is important, what aspects of protection is important for me. At the same time, what do I have capacity to understand? Because a German company doesn't necessarily want to go and understand US legislation and go to court in the US. They say, okay, let's keep it in the US. I know it. I have experience with it. I'm operating here, and if something goes wrong, I can hold accountable that company, because I have a legal team for that.
And it's very important what you said about jurisdiction, and it also builds on what the comment from David Frocci from ISOC, and a number of countries are actually attacking encryption and to enable, stronger surveillance. And I would like to conclude. We have 2 minutes left, and we want to close on time. I would like just to hear from Tobias and from Christophe how much also this issue of jurisdiction gets more and more important, or may not, in the discussion. So Tobias, from the EuroCloud perspective, how much regulations and jurisdictions is increasingly more important or not from your perspective? And Tobias and Christophe, what do your clients ask for? You're in Luxembourg, which is also a strong place for encryption. So is there an appetite from clients to be hosted in a safe jurisdiction? So 2 comments quickly, and then we close. Tobias?
Well, to answer your second question first, what does our client ask? Our client want everything. They don't want to pay for it, and they want to have it 100% secure. Okay, that's a joke, but that's the reality, right? And they don't want to think about it in detail. So from a European perspective and from a business development perspective, encryption could be one of the relevant keys. The more we use and the more encryption can cover, the better it is for all of our business. From a European point of view, please advise you to follow Gaia-X very closely. Gaia-X, from my point of view, will be the next GDPR. It will be much bigger than GDPR. That is my prediction, because it makes it possible that we can really start to make money with data, not only Facebook's and Cambridge Analytics of this world, but everybody, because it gives a legal and a technical and a compliance and a commercial framework so that is around companies that participate. And if this will work, if companies can trust that they can share data without losing them and still having the control over the usage, that will give an unbelievable boost in data economy. And I'm very positive on that. I think this will be really a big thing, and encryption will play a key element there.
Christophe, I see you're kind of knocking, so are you?
No, yeah. I think Tobias is right, and you touch a little bit on that, Jean-Christophe, at the beginning. I think that's. So I will not say customers are not paying or don't want to pay, but that's the story for years and years. I think 20 years in that business, and it's always the issue. They want to pay after the incident, but not before. Anyway, so we have to play with that. My point is that we need, of course, sovereign is an ongoing topic. I was at the FIC, for the French guys, sovereign is France. When you are in Luxembourg, sovereign means collaboration in Europe. So we do not necessarily the definition of what does it mean. But my view, which is again a more pragmatic one, we have to select the battles. I think thinking that we can build our own cloud in terms of infrastructure and all these kind of things, I think it's a dream. French tried some years ago. They spent a lot of money and they still continue, blah, blah, blah. The guy that speak about sovereignty just announced that they will do a sovereign cloud with Google. So, okay, so that's a new way to read things. I don't know. But my point is that, and Tobias touched on that, with Gaia X, even if I'm not a specialist on that, but when I look at Luxembourg embrace the topics. We have currently on the table a call for important project on that. It's okay. Let's leverage the technology or the platform that are already in place with all the capability they have, but let's build a layer of service on top of that infrastructure in order to get back the control of what is mandatory for us, and just consider the infrastructure of the cloud in that case as a commodity. And we can switch to the one we want, but we want to keep the control of the service layer, where we put our critical data, where we put our critical businesses, and these kind of things. So this is the kind of things I think we need to have to focus, because otherwise it's good for the discussion, but it will not produce anything concrete,
Thank you, Christophe. I think, yes, you mentioned this announcement from this French company that was quite interesting this morning, and it shows, we are in a dynamic environment. So, guys, I'm conscious of time. Thank you for all our participants. We said goodbye to Tobias already. I think it's just more beginning of a discussion rather than the end. I think with the work of Gaia X, EuroCloud Europe, Excellium Europe, it's all something we have to develop and do more. Thank you, Istvan, for your time. Thank you, Christophe, for giving your contribution. Thank you, everybody. We'll have our next sessions next month with Tetragard, one of our members as well. So stay tuned for more activities from us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.